So this tutorial is a brief summary of the vital discoveries made by French chemist Louis Pasteur. By 1800, most scientists and doctors knew that microorganisms called germs or microbes existed, but many thought that germs were the result of disease, not the cause of it. This idea was called spontaneous generation because the disease spontaneously generated these germs. Some believed that disease was caused by gases called miasmas, and others believed different theories, but none of them thought germs were the cause. So as I say, Pasteur was a French chemist and he was the first to make this link. But he did not set out to do this. His research was driven by the needs of brewing businesses that had asked him to investigate why some of the ingredients used to make industrial alcohol went sour, in particular sugar beet. He examined samples of soured liquid under a microscope and decided that germs had caused the liquid to go sour. So he then set about proving this theory. And he did so by using a very specific piece of equipment known as the swan neck flask. And as you can see, it's called a swan neck because it's got this bending neck at the top of it. So what he did was he heated water in this swan neck flask, and by heating the water it pushed out the warm contaminated air out of the flask. So all this air contained germs, but the heat forced that air to rise and round the bend of the neck. When that water cooled, actually all the contaminated air was suspended in the neck and trapped in the bend of the neck here, which meant that the remaining air left in the flask and therefore the water was free from germs. The final step of his investigation, or of his experiment, was to break off the neck of his swan neck flask, and all of the germ and contaminated air would rush back into the flask and contaminate the water further once again. So despite this, despite public experiments and demonstrations, many refused to believe this theory. So Pasteur went about continuing these investigations and looking at another disease that was costing French industry an awful lot of money, and that was a silkworm disease known as pebrine. He investigated it in the same fashion, and unfortunately his investigations were interrupted by the tragic death of his father and two daughters. But not long after this, in 1867, he demonstrated and proved that this silkworm disease was actually caused by germs.